I met Ron English in 1999. I met him at a Daniel Johnston show at CBGB's. Daniel was doing these drawings, these really great drawings, and Ron was doing his interpretation of them, small paintings. I met him there, saw Daniel perform. My friend Don Godey introduced me to Ron. That's when he and I started, I guess, officially talking about music projects. It didn't take long to figure out that Ron was a big fan of music, and he had put out a couple of records. He'd given me a copy of English 101, which is a great record. And he also gave me a copy of an album called Revelations. I went down to Washington, D.C. to see another exhibition of his and Daniel's, and Daniel and I hit it off pretty well. That was the first time I got to hang out with Daniel sort of one-on-one. And I was a big Daniel Johnston fan to begin with, so that was kind of what drew me to the whole thing. And Ron and I were getting along pretty well by that point, and the three of us had to drive back and forth from a place sort of in the woods to this exhibition where they were setting up the show. And each day we would drive in the car, we would talk about the band, we were going to create this band. It was like, 30, 40 minutes drive each day, and we started singing in the car as we were going back and forth each day. I remember we stopped at a junk sale, and I saw this really freaky little green tricycle, and I said, hey, we should call our band the Green Tricycle. And Daniel said, no, that's not a good name. I have a better name. And then Daniel said, how about the Hyperjinx Tricycle? And he started telling us all about the Hyperjinx, which I really honestly can't remember, but it's really freaky, and it's about like time travel and serendipity and sort of coincidence all wrapped up in one. And so anyway, we loved the name the Hyperjinx Tricycle, and we started singing songs, and we started, I don't know, it's kind of a pretend band to begin with, but I think when we got back to New York, Ron started to take it really seriously and started cranking out all these lyrics. And we started bringing Daniel to New York, and it was, I think, around that time, right before Daniel came to stay. I lived in Brooklyn, and Ron had a studio in Jersey City, and he had a vacancy in his studio, and so I kind of took over a small part of it. And I brought all my recording equipment, and I started writing songs there, and I started hanging out with Ron more. I started composing music to some of his paintings. I call them compositions for Ron English paintings. Daniel would come and stay at the studio, and we would kind of lock ourselves in the studio for like, 2 or 3 days, whatever, and record. And we locked ourselves in for like 2 to 3 days, brought in food and stuff to drink, and we just wrote and wrote and wrote and wrote. We did all these different combinations. We did like Ron's lyrics, and Daniel and I would improvise, or Daniel and I would improvise and Ron would sing something, or Daniel, of course, is the king of improvisation. Life goes on and on, and you try the best you can. That's how we did our first record, our first Hyperjinx record. But we realized very quickly that we had way too much music and not enough time to get it produced. It's seriously 75 recordings in 2 to 3 days. And I had done them all on this little Sony 4-track, and yeah, it was just remarkable. And then Daniel left, and then Ron and I were just like, oh my God, wow. We have this big pile of music, and so we handed it out to various producers and asked them to finish it. We handed them out to friends of ours that were producers, like my friend Yves Barzilay of Clem Snide. We gave one to him. We gave one to Chris Hartford. He had an amazing band, still does, called the Band of Changes. The Sutcliffes down in Texas did one of the songs. Kramer, who produced 2 of Daniel's greatest records, I think, 1990 and Artistic Vice. No, it just goes on and on. You know, the track listing is really impressive. And so we sent it out, and all these guys finished their songs. And then they sent them back, and we put it out. And this is when I met John Bryan at Important Records, and he had expressed some interest in it. So he put out our first record, which was just called the Hyperjinx Tricycle.
And then Daniel and I started to tour together, and we formed another band because we weren't with Ron.
So we decided to form another band called the Electric Ghosts.
And Ron was kind enough to paint our record cover for us. Daniel was Batman and I was Robin, because, you know, Daniel's Batman and I'm just Robin.
Fast forward even more, basically we all kind of split up in our own direction. I decided to move to Colorado, and Daniel, of course, is down in Texas, and Ron is in New York, and I get to New York when I can, but Ron started throwing these lyrics at me, like all the time. Like he would just, I don't know, he would be, you know, thinking about religion, and he would send me religious lyrics. Rocked asleep in the back of a Trailways bus, the words he left behind in this town spread like a virus. From man's Hoover Dam to God's Grand Canyon to Mount Olympus. Down here on man's highway, beneath God's skyway, trading minutes for miles. His face has been seen on billboards, TVs, and in magazines. Bought and sold here, inside this capitalist merchandising machine. He's been a man, he's been a god, he's been a product, he's been a dashboard figurine. Just for some reason, I don't know why, but it was easier for me to take these lyrics that I wasn't terribly attached to. I didn't have a lot to lose, I guess, and I just started working them into songs, and they seemed to come really rapidly. I met this amazing band in Colorado Springs called the Velvet Rut, and these guys were so good, and they were such amazing musicians. I thought, wow, I might have found my dream band, because I'd been in so many bands growing up. And these guys were just phenomenal, and I loved their sound, and I approached Michael Kimbrough, and I said, what do you think about this idea? Ron sends the lyrics, I write the tunes, I give them to you guys, and you guys make them great. And they heard one or two songs, and they were in. And we didn't know what to call ourselves, and so we asked Ron, and he gave us a list of like 20 names. The Electric Illuminati was on the list, and we all were just like, that's it. So it became the Electric Illuminati. And then it wasn't terribly long after Ron had come up with this character that I think was inspired around the time Super Size Me came out. We wrote a song called MC Supersizer. He wrote the lyrics and I wrote the music. MC Super Size Me was this character that Daniel LaHoda decided to make a giant character out of Ron's Super Size Me. And this director, Justin Kovac, decided that he was going to make a video for us. So we ran all around Colorado Springs, and we ran around in New York, and we got footage from the Sundance Film Festival, and basically that's at the end of this as well.